June 1, 1921, Tulsa, Oklahoma, Sinquam. A 14-year-old boy wakes to the sound of his father screaming. W.D. Williams looks out his window, and his eyes widened in horror. The sky is red with fire, and things are falling from the sky. Small, black, round objects. When they hit the ground, they explode. These are planes, and they are dropping bombs on an American city, on American citizens. They are bombing a place called Greenwood, a neighborhood known across America by a single name, Black Wall Street. According to the Oklahoma Commission's final report, published in 2001, eyewitnesses described airplanes flying low over Greenwood, dropping incendiary devices. This was the first and only time in American history that an American city was bombed from the air by its own citizens. Tonight, on Mystery Doom, we take you to a place that was once the wealthiest black community in America, and we will show you how, in 18 hours, it was all turned to ash. What was Greenwood? Tulsa, Oklahoma, America's oil capital. Money flowed like the rivers they drilled next to, but oil wasn't just for white people. Black people were getting rich too, and that wealth was concentrated in one place, Greenwood Avenue. According to historical records compiled by the Tulsa Historical Society, this wasn't just a street. This was 35 blocks, over 10,000 residents, more than 600 businesses, black doctors with their own clinics, black lawyers with their own offices, black-owned hotels, black-owned movie theaters, 2 black newspapers, the Tulsa Star and the Oklahoma Sun, a black library, a black hospital, jazz clubs that rivaled anything in Harlem. Mary E. Jones Parrish was a school teacher who survived the massacre and wrote a book called Events of the Tulsa Disaster. In it, she described Greenwood as a city within a city, a monument to what black Americans could achieve if given the chance, and they had been given that chance. In 1906, a black businessman named O.W. Gurley bought land in Greenwood and sold it exclusively to black families. A community was born. In 1911, J.B. Stratford arrived, a black lawyer and entrepreneur. He built a hotel, then more businesses, then more wealth. By 1921, according to tax records cited by the Oklahoma Commission, the collective wealth of Greenwood residents exceeded several $million, the equivalent of over $50 million today. While white Tulsa slept, Greenwood was awake, building, growing, thriving. But this prosperity was a problem, a big problem, because white Tulsa did not like what they saw, the spark. May 30th, 1921, Monday evening, a 19-year-old black boy, Dick Rowland, worked as a shoeshiner in the Drexel building. According to historian Scott Ellsworth's book, The Groundbreaking, there was only one restroom black people could use in that building, on the top floor. Dick Rowland took the elevator. The elevator operator was a 17-year-old white girl named Sarah Page. What happened in that elevator? To this day, no one knows for certain. According to police records later cited by the Oklahoma Commission, Page later told authorities that Dick grabbed her arm, but she refused to press charges. Dick always maintained his innocence through his attorney. But the next day, the Tulsa Tribune newspaper ran a front-page story. The headline, "Nab Negro for attacking girl in elevator." It was a lie, or at least, a gross exaggeration. But the newspaper also ran an editorial that same night. It said, "There may be a lynching tonight," and white Tulsa heard, and white Tulsa prepared. The standoff. May 31st, 1921. 7 p.m. A crowd gathered outside the Tulsa County Courthouse. A white mob. 400 people, then 1,000, then 2,000. They wanted Dick Rowland. They wanted to lynch him. But Greenwood heard, and Greenwood made a decision, not on our watch. According to witness testimonies collected by the Oklahoma Commission, black World War I veterans, men who had been taught to fight for their country in Europe, were now ready to fight for their homes. They went to the courthouse. They brought their weapons. They said, "You will not take Dick." 10 p.m., the sheriff had taken his position. He told the black veterans, "Go home. I will protect Dick." Some left, but between 75 and 100 veterans stayed. 11 p.m. A white man tried to grab a gun from a black veteran. A shot rang out. No one knows who fired first, but that single shot would burn 35 blocks to the ground. The assault. June 1st, 1921, 1 a.m. The white mob stormed Greenwood. According to the Oklahoma Commission's 2001 report, this was not spontaneous. This was planned. They had spent the day gathering weapons. They had organized cars, and the commission found evidence that city officials had provided them with ammunition. They came, and they burned. Homes burned. Businesses burned. The hospital burned. The library burned. They looted. They torched. They killed. 4 a.m. Something happened that had never happened in America before. Planes appeared. Planes dropped bombs. The Oklahoma Commission's report states, eyewitnesses described airplanes flying low over Greenwood, dropping incendiary devices. W.D. Williams, that 14-year-old boy, would later testify before the commission in 1998. I saw the planes. I saw them drop things, and when those things hit the ground, they exploded. This was the first and only time in American history that an American city was bombed from the air by its own citizens. The aftermath. June 1st, 1921, 9 a.m. 35 blocks, gone. According to the American Red Cross report published later that year, over 1,200 homes were burned. More than 600 businesses were reduced to ash. Over 10,000 people were left homeless. The Red Cross arrived. They had never seen destruction on this scale. They documented every block, every building, every family left with nothing. Then the National Guard arrived, but they didn't come to stop the mob. They came to round up the survivors. According to Tulsa Historical Society records, over 6,000 black people, children, elderly, mothers, fathers, were detained at Convention Hall and the Tulsa Fairgrounds. Some were held for days, some for weeks. Some never saw their homes again. The death count, the official death count at the time, 36. 26 black, 10 white. It was a lie. The Oklahoma Commission, after years of investigation, concluded in their 2001 report, the official death count was grossly underestimated. The real number? Between 75 and 300, almost all black. How do we know? Witness testimonies, burial records, and in 2020 and 2021, to 100 years later, scientists used ground-penetrating radar at Oaklawn Cemetery. According to a report by the Associated Press, they found mass graves. In October 2021, exhumations began. Human remains were found, coffins were found, buried together like mass graves. 100 years later, we are still finding them. The cover-up. As soon as the massacre ended, a grand jury was convened, but according to court records cited by the Oklahoma Commission, they weren't there to investigate the white mob. They were there to investigate the black community, to see if they had brought this upon themselves. The grand jury's verdict: agitation on the part of certain Negro elements. No white person was ever prosecuted, according to insurance records cited by historian James Hirsch in his book Riot and Remembrance. No insurance claims were ever paid. Insurance companies successfully argued that riot damage wasn't covered. The city passed new building codes, new zoning laws. What remained of Greenwood was rezoned industrial. Black families who had owned property for generations were forced to sell for pennies on the dollar. The city made it illegal to rebuild in brick, the only material that could withstand another fire. And then they made it impossible to get loans. Greenwood never recovered. The survivors speak. W.D. Williams, that 14-year-old boy who saw his father scream, grew up. He married, raised children, grew old. In 1998, at 91 years old, he testified before the Oklahoma Commission. He had seen the planes. He had seen the bombs. He had seen the bodies. According to the Commission's transcripts, he told them, "I want the world to know what happened here. I want them to know that we were a proud people. We had everything, and they took it all." W.D. Williams died in 2004. He was 97 years old. He never saw justice, but he told the truth. And the truth, as Mystery Doom teaches you, never stays buried forever. 2021, 100 years later, President Joe Biden came to Tulsa. According to the White House official transcript, he was the first sitting president to officially acknowledge the massacre. He said, "I come here to fill the silence, because in silence, wounds deepen. But the descendants of survivors are still waiting." Viola Fletcher, the last known survivor, was 107 years old when she testified before Congress in 2021. According to the congressional record, she said, "I have lived long enough to see my city acknowledge what happened, but I have not lived long enough to see justice." Viola died in 2022, 108 years old, without receiving a single dollar in reparations, without seeing a single apology. Today, in 2026, as you watch this, the 35-block area that was once Greenwood still exists, but it's empty. Parking lots, factories, nothing to tell you that a city once stood there, a city built by black people, a city burned by a white mob, and America. America has never formally apologized, never paid compensation, never taught this in schools, according to a 2020 survey by the Southern Poverty Law Center. Only 12 states require any mention of the Tulsa Race Massacre in their school curricula. Most Americans have no idea what happened there, but now you know. Next time on Mystery Doom, in Part 2, we travel from 1921 to 1955, Mississippi. A 14-year-old boy comes from Chicago to visit relatives. He whistles at a white woman. His mother had taught him, "Get on your knees, bow, but never raise your head." But that boy didn't know that in the Jim Crow South, a whistle could be a death sentence. His name was Emmett Till, and his murder and his mother's decision to show the world what they did to her son would spark a movement that changed America forever. If you believe that history matters, if you believe that the truth cannot stay buried forever, then share this video. Send it to someone who has never heard of Black Wall Street. Post it on social media. Help us ensure that Greenwood is never forgotten again. Subscribe to Mystery Doom. The truth never stays buried forever. August 28, 1955. Tallahatchie River, Mississippi. Dawn. A 14-year-old boy's body floats to the surface of the muddy water. He has been beaten so severely that his face is unrecognizable. A 74-pound cotton gin fan is tied to his neck with barbed wire. He has been shot in the head. His name is Emmett Louis Till. He arrived in Mississippi just 1 week ago to visit family. He was from Chicago. He had no idea that the color of his skin would cost him his life, and he had no idea that his death would spark a movement that would change America forever. The boy from Chicago. Emmett Till was born on July 25, 1941, in Chicago, Illinois. According to his mother's memoir, Death of Innocence, his father, Louis Till, had died in World War II. He was raised by his mother, Mamie Till Bradley, in a working-class neighborhood on the south side of Chicago. According to family members quoted in the New York Times, he was a typical Chicago kid, energetic, confident, and unaccustomed to the racial codes of the Jim Crow South. He had a slight speech impediment and would sometimes whistle to overcome his stutter. That summer of 1955, Emmett begged his mother to let him visit his cousins in Mississippi. According to her memoir, she was reluctant. She knew the dangers, but she finally agreed, warning him, "If you have to get on your knees and bow, do it. Don't raise your head to any white person." He promised he would be careful. He had no idea what he was walking into on the evening of August 24, 1955. Emmett and several of his cousins drove to a small grocery store in Money, Mississippi. The store was Bryant's Grocery and Meat Market, owned by a white couple, Roy Bryant and his wife Carolyn. What happened inside that store has been disputed for 70 years, according to Caroline Bryant's testimony during the trial. Emmett took her hand at the cash register, asked her for a date, and when she pulled away, grabbed her waist and said he had been with white women before. She claimed she broke free, ran to get her gun, and Emmett whistled at her. But according to Emmett's cousins, who spoke to the FBI during their 2004 investigation, the story was different. They said Emmett bought some candy, and as Caroline Bryant walked out to her car, he whistled. That was all. The whistle, they said, was just a whistle, a 14-year-old boy's whistle. But according to historian David Halberstam, in his book The 50s, in Mississippi in 1955, a black boy whistling at a white woman was a death sentence. The abduction. 4 days passed. Then, at approximately 2 a.m. on August 28th, Emmett's great-uncle, 64-year-old Mose Wright, heard a knock at his door. According to Wright's testimony at the trial, a voice outside said, "This is Mr. Bryant. I want to talk to you and that boy." Wright opened the door. He saw Roy Bryant and his half-brother, J.W. Millam. Millam held a flashlight in one hand and a pistol in the other. According to court records, the two men searched the house until they found Emmett. Millam ordered the boy to get dressed. Wright heard Millam say, "If it is not the right boy, we are going to bring him back and put him in the bed." Emmett's great-aunt, Elizabeth Wright, pleaded with the men. She offered to pay them anything. According to witness statements, they ignored her. They took Emmett, put him in their truck, and drove away into the night. The murder. 2 months later, in October 1955, journalist William Bradford Huey of Look magazine paid Roy Bryant and J.W. Millam $4,000 for their confession. The article was titled "The Shocking Story of a Proved Killing in Mississippi." According to Huey's article, Millam told him that they had only planned to whip Emmett to scare some sense into him. They drove him to a cliff overlooking the Mississippi River. But according to Millam, Emmett refused to be intimidated. Millam was quoted as saying, "He kept telling me he had slept with white women, and that he was as good as I was." At that moment, Millam said, he decided there wasn't anything else to do but kill him. According to the confession, they drove Emmett to a tool shed behind Millam's home. They beat him savagely. Then they forced him into the back of a pickup truck and drove to a ginning company, where they made him load a 74-pound cotton gin fan into the truck bed. They drove to the Tallahatchie River, ordered Emmett to undress, and shot him in the head. They tied the cotton gin fan to his neck with barbed wire and threw his body into the river. 3 days later, it floated to the surface. The mother's decision. When the body was recovered, it was so badly decomposed that according to the FBI's 2006 report, authorities initially claimed it could not be identified. They wanted to bury it quickly in Mississippi. They wanted this to go away. But Emmett Till Bradley made a decision that would change history. According to her memoir, she insisted that the body be returned to Chicago. When she saw it at the funeral home, she looked at what was left of her son and made a choice. She later told reporters, "I want the world to see what they did to my baby." She insisted on an open casket funeral. According to the Chicago Tribune archives, an estimated 50,000 mourners filed past Emmett's casket in Chicago. People lined up for blocks, waiting hours to see. And photographs of his mutilated body were published in Jet magazine, a black publication with national circulation. According to historian Isabel Wilkerson, for the first time, white Americans who had never witnessed the reality of lynching saw what it meant. They saw what hate looked like. They saw what a 14-year-old boy looked like after two men were done with him. And something shifted. Something cracked open in the American conscience. The trial. Roy Bryant and J.W. Millam were arrested and charged with murder. Their trial began on September 19, 1955, in Sumner, Mississippi. According to the New York Times coverage from the time the courtroom was packed, journalists from across the country attended. The jury was all white, all men. The judge permitted black journalists to sit on the floor near the white press table, a rare concession in the Jim Crow South. Then Mose Wright took the stand. According to court transcripts, in a moment captured in photographs and described in news reports around the world, he stood, pointed at Roy Bryant, and said, "There he is." According to the Smithsonian National Museum of African American History and Culture, it was the first time in Mississippi history that a black man had testified against a white man in open court. The room went silent. Everyone knew the risk he was taking. Everyone knew what could happen to him after the trial, but he did it anyway. Caroline Bryant testified, but according to court records, her testimony was excluded by the judge, ruled irrelevant to the murder. Decades later, according to a 2017 interview with Duke University researchers, she would admit that she had fabricated the story, but at the time, her presence in the courtroom was enough. The defense argued that the body was so decomposed it could not be positively identified as Emmett Till. They suggested the NAACP had planted a body to create a scandal. On September 23, 1955, after 67 minutes of deliberation, the jury returned a verdict, not guilty. According to Time magazine, one juror later said, "We wouldn't have taken so long if we had unstopped to drink a pop." The confession. Protected by double jeopardy, they could not be tried again. Bryant and Millam agreed to speak to journalist William Bradford Huey. According to Huey's account, they knew they were safe. They knew the law would not touch them. They admitted everything. They described the beating, the shooting, the river. They showed no remorse. They were proud. Huey's article appeared in Look magazine in January 1956. It confirmed what Black Americans already knew, that in Mississippi, in 1955, you could murder a 14-year-old boy and walk free. You could even brag about it. The legacy, Emmett Till's murder, became the catalyst for the civil rights movement. According to historians at the Smithsonian, it is often called the first great media event of the civil rights movement. Rosa Parks later said, according to her autobiography, that she thought of Emmett Till when she refused to give up her seat on a Montgomery bus in December 1955. Just 3 months after his body was pulled from the river, she said, "I thought of Emmett Till, and I just couldn't go back." In 2022, 67 years after his murder, the Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act was signed into law by President Joe Biden, according to the White House official statement. It made lynching a federal hate crime for the first time in American history. The first such bill had been introduced in 1900 to 122 years earlier. It had failed more than 200 times. The mother's final word, Mamie Till Bradley, never stopped fighting for justice. According to her obituary in the New York Times, she became a teacher, an activist, and a voice for millions. She died in 2003, at the age of 81. In a 1995 interview with NPR, she said, "When people see what happened to my son, they should not just say, 'How terrible.' They should say, 'What can I do to make sure this never happens again?'" According to her wishes, Emmett's original casket, the one that traveled from Mississippi to Chicago, the one that 50,000 mourners filed past, was donated to the Smithsonian National Museum of African American History and Culture in Washington, D.C. It stands there today, a monument, a warning, a reminder that a 14-year-old boy went to Mississippi for a summer visit and never came home. A reminder that 2 men killed him and never spent a day in prison. A reminder that his mother forced the world to look. And a reminder that the truth, no matter how buried, always finds its way to the surface. Next time on Mystery Doom. In Part 3, we examine 2 men who rose from the ashes of this oppression. 2 men with 2 different visions, 2 paths, and 2 assassinations that still haunt America. Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. One believed in by any means necessary. One believed in nonviolence. Both were killed before they turned 40, and both left behind questions that have never been fully answered. Subscribe to Mystery Doom. Hit the bell icon. Turn on notifications. Every week, we bring you the stories they didn't teach you in school. The truths that were buried. The heroes you never heard of. And the struggles that continue to this day. If you believe that history matters, if you believe that the truth cannot stay buried forever, then share this video. Send it to someone who needs to know Emmett Till's story. Post it on social media. Help us ensure that the 50,000 people who filed past his casket did not file in vain. Subscribe to Mystery Doom. The truth never stays buried forever. February 21st, 1965. Audubon Ballroom, Harlem. 3:05 p.m. A 39-year-old man rises to speak before 400 people. He wears a dark suit and horn-rimmed glasses. He has been in the Nation of Islam, then left it. He has been to Mecca, seen Muslims of all races praying together, and returned with a new vision. He opens his mouth to address the crowd. Before he can finish his first sentence, a man in the front row stands and shouts, "Get your hand out of my pocket." The commotion draws everyone's attention. In that moment, 3 men rush the stage. They pull out sawed-off shotguns and semi-automatic pistols. They fire 16 rounds. The man on stage is hit multiple times. He falls backward, his body crashing into chairs behind him. He is dead on arrival at Columbia Presbyterian Hospital. His name is Malcolm X, and his murder remains one of the most contested assassinations in American history. 3 years later, Memphis, Tennessee, April 4, 1968, 6:01 p.m., another 39-year-old man stands on the balcony of the Lorraine Motel. He leans over the railing, talking to colleagues in the parking lot below. A shot rings out. He falls backward, his hands flying to his face. A single bullet has struck him in the neck. He is rushed to St. Joseph's Hospital. He is pronounced dead at 7:05 p.m. His name is Martin Luther King Jr. 2 men, 2 visions, 2 bullets, and a nation left to wonder, what if they had lived? The rise of Malcolm X. Malcolm Little was born in Omaha, Nebraska, in 1925. According to his autobiography, the autobiography of Malcolm X, his father, a Baptist preacher and activist, was killed when Malcolm was 6. A death the family always believed was a lynching, though it was officially ruled an accident. After his father's death, his mother was committed to a mental institution. Malcolm spent years in foster homes and reform schools. At 20, he was sentenced to 8 to 10 years in prison for burglary. Prison changed everything. Through his brother Reginald, he discovered the Nation of Islam, a movement that combined Islam with black nationalism. Its leader, Elijah Muhammad, taught that white people were devils and that black people must separate from white society completely. According to his autobiography, Malcolm devoured books in the prison library. He wrote letters to Elijah Muhammad every day. He transformed himself from a street hustler named Detroit Red to a minister of the Nation of Islam. Upon his release in 1952, he became Malcolm X. The X symbolized his lost African name, stolen by slavery. The voice of black anger. By 1960, Malcolm X was the most famous black Muslim in America. According to historian Manning Marable, in his Pulitzer Prize-winning book Malcolm X, A Life of Reinvention, his speeches were electric. His critiques of white America were merciless. He spoke to crowds that Martin Luther King Jr. could not reach. Young, urban, angry black men who had given up on nonviolence. According to transcripts of his speeches, he told them, "You don't have a revolution in which you love your enemy. You don't have a revolution in which you are begging the oppressor to give you some rights." He called integration a trick. He called nonviolence foolishness. According to his speech at the Northern Negro Grass Roots Leadership Conference in 1963, he said, "We declare our right on this earth to be a man, to be a human being, to be respected as a human being, to be given the rights of a human being in this society on this earth, in this day which we intend to bring into existence by any means necessary." By any means necessary, those words would become his trademark, and they terrified white America. The rise of Martin Luther King Jr. While Malcolm was rising through the Nation of Islam, another man was taking a different path. Martin Luther King Jr. was born in Atlanta in 1929, according to his autobiography. The autobiography of Martin Luther King Jr., compiled by Claiborne Carson. His father was a pastor. His mother was a teacher. He grew up in a middle-class family, attended Morehouse College at 15, and earned a PhD in theology from Boston University. In 1954, at 25, he became pastor of Dexter Avenue Baptist Church in Montgomery, Alabama. 1 year later, a woman named Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat on a city bus. According to King's account, the Montgomery bus boycott began, and a young pastor named Martin Luther King Jr. was chosen to lead it. The boycott lasted 381 days. According to historical records, King's house was bombed. He was arrested, but he never wavered. And when the Supreme Court ruled that bus segregation was unconstitutional, a movement was born. King's philosophy was rooted in Christian love and Gandhian nonviolence. According to his writings, he believed that suffering could be redemptive. He believed that if black people peacefully endured violence, their oppressors' hearts would be changed. According to his book Strength to Love, he said, "Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that." Two different paths to the same destination. On the surface, Malcolm and Martin could not have been more different. Malcolm spoke to the streets. Martin spoke to the churches. Malcolm preached self-defense. Martin preached nonviolence. Malcolm called white people devils. Martin called for white allies to join the struggle. But beneath the surface, according to historian James Cone in his book Martin and Malcolm in America, they were both fighting the same enemy. Both wanted dignity for black people. Both wanted an end to oppression. Both were willing to die for their beliefs. And by the end of their lives, they were moving toward each other, the break with the nation. In 1963, Malcolm learned something that shattered him. According to multiple biographers, Elijah Muhammad, his spiritual leader, the man he had worshipped, had fathered multiple children out of wedlock with young secretaries, a direct violation of the nation's strict moral code. Malcolm was devastated. He had defended Elijah Muhammad against all critics. He had built the nation into a national movement, and now he discovered that his leader was a hypocrite. In November 1963, President John F. Kennedy was assassinated. According to newspaper accounts, Malcolm was asked for comment. He said it was a case of chickens coming home to roost, meaning the violence white America had sown was now coming back to haunt them. The statement caused outrage. According to historian Manning Marable, Elijah Muhammad used it as an excuse to silence Malcolm, banning him from speaking for 90 days. Malcolm never returned. In March 1964, he announced his departure from the Nation of Islam. According to his autobiography, he formed two new organizations, Muslim Mosque, Incorporated, for religious work, and the Organization of Afro-American Unity, for political organizing. The transformation. In April 1964, Malcolm traveled to Mecca, the Hajj pilgrimage required of all Muslims who are able. What he saw there changed him forever. According to a letter he wrote from Mecca, quoted in his autobiography, "Never have I witnessed such sincere hospitality, an overwhelming spirit of true brotherhood as is practiced by people of all colors and races here in this ancient holy land." He saw white Muslims, black Muslims, brown Muslims, all praying together, all treating each other as equals. And he realized that racism was not inherent to white people. It was a product of American society, not human nature. He returned to the United States with a new name, El-Hajj Mali, and a new message, not anti-white, but pro-human rights. According to historian Manning Marable, he began working with civil rights leaders he had once criticized. He spoke at the Organization of African Unity, connecting the struggle of black Americans to the struggle of colonized peoples worldwide. He was no longer just a black nationalist. He was becoming an international human rights leader, and that, some believe, made him more dangerous than ever. The surveillance. Throughout his life, Malcolm X was watched. According to declassified FBI files, the FBI's COINTELPRO counterintelligence program had targeted him specifically. Agents monitored his phone calls, opened his mail, placed informants in his organizations. They worked to create friction between him and the Nation of Islam. The FBI's stated mission was to expose, disrupt, misdirect, discredit, or otherwise neutralize groups they considered subversive. And Malcolm X, especially after his transformation, was considered very subversive. A researcher named Carl Evans spent 15 years examining over 300,000 pages of declassified FBI and CIA documents. According to his book, The Judas Factor, he concluded that the intelligence community played a far larger role in Malcolm's death than previously acknowledged. The FBI knew of plots against Malcolm. They had informants at every level of the Nation of Islam. They did nothing to stop them. The assassination. By February 1965, Malcolm knew he was a target. According to his autobiography, his home had been firebombed a week earlier. He and his family survived, but the message was clear. On February 21st, he prepared to speak at the Audubon Ballroom in Harlem. According to eyewitness accounts, his security team, worried about an attack, asked to search everyone entering. Malcolm refused. He didn't want to scare people away. At 3:05 p.m., he stepped to the podium. He said, "Brothers and sisters." Before he could finish, a man in the front row stood and shouted. In the chaos that followed, according to court records, 3 men rushed the stage and opened fire. Malcolm was hit 16 times. He died before reaching the hospital, according to trial transcripts. 3 men were convicted. Talmadge Hayer, also known as Thomas Hagen, Norman 3X Butler, and Thomas 15X Johnson. Hayer admitted his involvement, but maintained that Butler and Johnson were innocent. He named 4 other men as participants, all members of the Nation of Islam, but questions have never stopped. Decades later, declassified documents continue to raise new questions, and many believe the full truth has never been told. 3 years later, Memphis. By 1968, Martin Luther King Jr. was also under surveillance. According to declassified FBI files, the COINTEL program targeted him relentlessly. Agents tried to blackmail him, discredit him, destroy his marriage. According to FBI records, J. Edgar Hoover, the FBI director, called him the most dangerous man in America. King had expanded his focus beyond civil rights. According to his speeches from the period, he was now speaking out against the Vietnam War. He was planning a poor people's campaign to demand economic justice for all Americans. He was connecting racism, poverty, and militarism as 3 interconnected evils. On April 3, 1968, he spoke in Memphis, Tennessee, where sanitation workers were striking for better pay and working conditions. According to the audio recording that night, at the Mason Temple, he gave what would be his last speech. He said, "I've been to the mountaintop, and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we, as a people, will get to the promised land." The next evening, he stood on the balcony of the Lorraine Motel. According to eyewitness accounts, a single shot rang out. He was gone. The man who didn't act alone. A man named James Earl Ray was arrested 2 months later at London's Heathrow Airport. According to court records, he confessed to the murder, then recanted. He spent the rest of his life claiming he was framed. The House Select Committee on Assassinations investigated both Kennedy and King killings in the late 1970s. According to their final report, they concluded there was a likelihood that Ray acted as part of a conspiracy, likely involving white supremacists, not government agents. But they admitted they lacked sufficient evidence to prove it definitively. The King family has never accepted the long gunman theory. According to court records, in 1999, they filed a wrongful death civil lawsuit in Memphis. The jury unanimously concluded that King was the victim of a conspiracy involving government agencies. The verdict also affirmed that someone other than James Earl Ray was the shooter, and that Ray was set up to take the blame. The files that won't stay sealed. For decades, documents related to both assassinations remained classified. Families fought for access. Researchers demanded transparency. The government released files in batches, often with heavy redactions. In July 2025, according to news reports, the Trump administration released more than 230,000 pages of previously classified documents related to King's assassination. The Director of National Intelligence said, "The American people have waited nearly 60 years to see the full scope of the federal government's investigation into Dr. King's assassination." According to press coverage, the documents included FBI investigation details, internal memos tracking the case, information about Ray's former cellmate, who claimed Ray discussed an assassination plot, and CIA records on the international manhunt for Ray. The King family issued a statement, according to media reports, warning that the files must be viewed within their full historical context. They reminded the public that during King's lifetime, he was relentlessly targeted by an invasive, predatory, and deeply disturbing disinformation and surveillance campaign orchestrated by J. Edgar Hoover through the FBI, what the files reveal. The 2025 release confirmed what researchers had long suspected. The government's surveillance of King was far more extensive than previously acknowledged. According to the declassified documents, agents monitored his phone calls, his movements, his personal life. They tried to pressure him into suicide. They sent anonymous letters threatening to expose alleged affairs. One declassified memo, written in 1964, proposed selecting a new national Negro leader to replace King. The FBI saw him as too powerful, too influential, too dangerous to be allowed to continue. Whether the government was directly involved in his assassination remains disputed. But what is not disputed is this: they wanted him gone. They worked to destroy him. And when he was killed, they didn't seem particularly upset. The question that remains: two men, two visions, two bullets. Malcolm X, who believed in by any means necessary, died at 39. Martin Luther King Jr., who believed in love and nonviolence, died at 39. Both were killed before they could complete their work. Both left behind movements that would carry on without them. Both left behind questions that have never been fully answered. And both, in their own way, were proven right. Malcolm was right that America would not change without pressure. Martin was right that love could triumph over hate. And both were right that the struggle would be long, bloody, and far from over. The convergence. In the years since their deaths, the two paths have converged. According to historians, the Black Lives Matter movement that would emerge 5 decades later carries echoes of both men, Malcolm's fierce refusal to accept injustice, and Martin's commitment to peaceful protest. When protesters in 2020 chanted "I can't breathe," the last words of Eric Garner and George Floyd, they were channeling both. When they faced police brutality with raised hands, they were walking the line between Malcolm's self-defense and Martin's nonviolence. Both men saw something coming that America refused to see. Both warned that the violence of the state would eventually be met with resistance. Both predicted that the only alternative to justice was chaos. They were right. And 50 years after their deaths, America is still proving them right. Next time on Mystery Doom, in Part 4, we examine the system itself. The Tuskegee Syphilis Study, 40 years of government-sponsored medical experimentation on black men, redlining the federal policy that stole generational wealth from black families. Henrietta Lacks, whose cells were taken without consent, and became the foundation of a multi-billion-dollar industry. The war on black America was not just fought with bullets. It was fought with laws, with policies, with science, and with silence. Subscribe to Mystery Doom. Hit the bell icon. Turn on notifications. Every week, we bring you the stories they didn't teach you in school, the truths that were buried, the heroes you never heard of, and the struggles that continue to this day. If you believe that history matters, if you believe that the truth cannot stay buried forever, then share this video. Send it to someone who needs to understand why Black America still fights. Post it on social media. Help us ensure that Malcolm and Martin are never forgotten. Subscribe to Mystery Doom. The truth never stays buried forever. 1932, Macon County, Alabama. 600 black men gather at the Tuskegee Institute, a historically black college founded by Booker T. Washington. They have been recruited by the U.S. Public Health Service. They are told they have bad blood, a local term that could mean anything from syphilis to anemia to fatigue. They are promised free medical care, free meals, burial insurance. They are not told they have syphilis. They are not told they are part of a study. They are not told that the treatment they are receiving is no treatment at all. This is the beginning of the Tuskegee study of untreated syphilis in the Negro male. It will continue for 40 years. The study that wasn't treatment. These men were poor. They were sharecroppers. They couldn't read or write. They trusted the doctors in their white coats. They believed what they were told. They were told they were being treated. they were never told the truth. The researchers wanted to watch what happened when syphilis went untreated. They wanted to see the disease run its natural course from infection to the painful sores of the secondary stage, to the blindness, the insanity, the paralysis, and finally, death. By 1943, penicillin had become the standard treatment for syphilis. It was widely available. It was highly effective. It could cure the disease completely. The Tuskegee researchers did not offer it to their subjects. They actively prevented them from getting it elsewhere. They worked with local doctors and draft boards to ensure that these men would not receive treatment from anyone. Year after year, the men went blind. They went insane. They died. And they passed the disease to their wives and their children. 1972. The truth comes out. For 40 years, the study continued. Through World War II, through the Civil Rights Movement, through the assassinations of Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. Through it all, the men of Tuskegee were dying. Then, in 1972, an Associated Press reporter broke the story. The public was horrified. How could the United States government, in the 20th century, conduct such an experiment on human beings? An advisory panel was convened. According to their final report, their conclusion was damning. The study was ethically unjustified. Its results were disproportionately meager compared with known risks to human subjects involved. The study was finally stopped. But for 40 years, it had continued. And for most of the men, it was too late. The aftermath. In 1974, a class action lawsuit was filed. According to court records, the survivors and their families received a $10 million settlement. That's about $37,000 per person, for 40 years of lies, for lives destroyed, for children born with syphilis, for wives infected unknowingly. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the last study participant died in January 2004. The last widow receiving benefits died in January 2009. As of the CDC's last update, 10 children of participants continue to receive medical benefits. The only remaining link to the men who were told they were being treated, but were only being watched. On May 16, 1997, President Bill Clinton issued a formal apology. According to the White House transcript, he said, "The United States government did something that was wrong, deeply, profoundly, morally wrong. It is an outrage to our commitment to integrity and equality for all our citizens. An apology. After 40 years, after hundreds of deaths, after thousands of lives destroyed. An apology. The maps that stole wealth. While the government was experimenting on black men in Alabama, it was also shaping the geography of every American city in a way that would determine black wealth for generations." In the 1930s, the Federal Homeowners Loan Corporation, HOLC, created maps of American cities. According to the Mapping Inequality Project at the University of Richmond, they color-coded neighborhoods to assess mortgage lending risk. Green for best, blue for still desirable, yellow for declining, and red for hazardous. Red neighborhoods were considered too risky for loans, and the primary factor that made a neighborhood red, the presence of black people. The maps are now available online through the Mapping Inequality Project. The notes reveal the racial logic behind the ratings. In Miami, assessors described one neighborhood's detrimental influences as close to dump and Negro area. In Portland, Oregon, the downsides included infiltration of subversive racial elements. In Wichita, Kansas, the notes for one area stated that it contained the heavy Negro population of Wichita. The assessors described the area's desirability as low as it can be. They predicted that the only reason the population would increase would be through lack of birth control among Negroes and poor whites. This was government policy, federal policy. The United States government, through its official agencies, was systematically denying black families the ability to get mortgages, buy homes, and build wealth. The consequences that still exist: if you couldn't get a mortgage, you couldn't buy a home. If you couldn't buy a home, you couldn't build equity. If you couldn't build equity, you couldn't pass wealth to your children. and if you couldn't pass wealth to your children, the cycle of poverty would continue for generations. That's exactly what happened. According to the National Community Reinvestment Coalition today, the neighborhoods colored red in the 1930s remain disproportionately poor, disproportionately black, and disproportionately lacking in generational wealth. The maps drawn 90 years ago still predict the geography of poverty in American cities. White neighborhoods, meanwhile, were given loans. White families bought homes. White parents passed those homes to their children. White children used that equity to pay for college, to start businesses, to buy homes of their own. This didn't happen by accident. It happened by design. It was government policy. The cells that changed the world. In 1951, while the Tuskegee study continued and redlining shaped American cities, a 31-year-old black woman named Henrietta Lacks lay dying of cervical cancer at Johns Hopkins Hospital in Baltimore. According to Rebecca Skloot's book, The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks, she was poor, she was black, she was treated in the segregated ward, and when doctors took a sample of her tumor, they did not ask for her permission. They did not tell her what they were doing. They simply took it. Those cells were given to a researcher named George Gay, who had been trying for years to grow human cells in culture. Henrietta's cells did something no human cells had ever done before. They survived. They thrived. They divided and divided and divided. They were the first immortalized human cell line. They were named HeLa, after Henrietta Lacks. The industry built on stolen cells. HeLa cells changed medicine. According to scientific literature, they were used to develop the polio vaccine. They were sent into space to study the effects of zero gravity. They were exposed to radiation, treated with steroids, hormones, cosmetics, and infectious agents. They helped scientists visualize chromosomes and understand mitosis. According to research citations, they have been used in over 75,000 scientific studies. They are the foundation of a multi-billion-dollar industry. And Henrietta Lacks's family knew nothing about any of this for decades. According to Skloot's book, they learned about HeLa cells in the 1970s, when scientists contacted them seeking blood samples to understand the cell's genetic markers. They were shocked. They had never consented. They had never been compensated. For years, the family was harassed by scientists and journalists alike. They received no benefit from the industry built on Henrietta's cells. Her body, used without consent. Her legacy, a question mark. The connection, Tuskegee, redlining HeLa. They are not separate stories. They are the same story. The story of a system that treated black bodies as objects, black communities as experiments, and black lives as expendable. At Tuskegee, doctors watched men die because they wanted to see what would happen. In city after city, government officials drew lines that determined who could build wealth and who could not. At Johns Hopkins, doctors took cells from a dying woman and built an industry without her knowledge or consent. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is documented history. Government reports, declassified files, maps that still exist, cells that are still used. This is what systemic racism looks like. Not just individual prejudice, not just occasional discrimination, but a system built over centuries, embedded in institutions, operating through policies and practices that continue to shape American life. The numbers don't lie. According to the Federal Reserve's 2019 survey of consumer finances, today, the median wealth of white families is $188,200. The median wealth of black families is $24,100. That's an eightfold disparity. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, black home ownership rates are 44%, compared to 74% for white Americans, the same gap as in 1968, when the Fair Housing Act was passed. According to mapping by the Washington Post, black Americans are 2.5 times more likely to be killed by police than white Americans. According to the U.S. Department of Education, black students are suspended at 3 times the rate of white students. These numbers are not accidents. They are not coincidences. They are the legacy of 400 years of policies designed to keep black Americans from achieving equality. The question. In 1932, when the Tuskegee study began, Black Americans had been free from slavery for just 67 years. In 1951, when Henrietta Lacks's cells were taken, Brown v. Board of Education had not yet been decided. In 1968, when redlining was finally outlawed, Martin Luther King Jr. was killed. The system has changed, but it has not been dismantled. The wounds are still open. The consequences are still being felt. And the question that haunted the men of Tuskegee, the families of Greenwood, the descendants of Henrietta Lacks, that question still hangs over America. When will this country face its past? When will it tell the truth? When will it make things right? Next time on Mystery Doom. In Part 5, we examine the present, from the Civil Rights Movement to Black Lives Matter, from the election of Barack Obama to the resurgence of white nationalism, from the streets of Minneapolis to the chambers of the Supreme Court. The struggle continues, and the question remains, will America ever truly change? Subscribe to Mystery Doom. Hit the bell icon. Turn on notifications. Every week, we bring you the stories they didn't teach you in school, the truths that were buried, the heroes you never heard of, and the struggles that continue to this day. If you believe that history matters, if you believe that the truth cannot stay buried forever, then share this video. Send it to someone who needs to understand why the fight for justice is far from over. Post it on social media. Help us ensure that the men of Tuskegee, the families of Redland neighborhoods, and Henrietta Lacks are never forgotten. Subscribe to Mystery Doom. The truth never stays buried forever. March 7, 1965. Selma, Alabama. 4:15 p.m. 600 marchers gather at Brown Chapel, AIM Church. They intend to walk 54 miles to Montgomery, the state capital, to demand voting rights. They have been planning for weeks. They know the risks. As they cross the Edmund Pettus Bridge, they are met by a wall of Alabama state troopers. Television cameras capture it all. That night, Americans watch the footage on their living room screens. For the first time, white Americans who had never witnessed the violence of Jim Crow see it with their own eyes. The day becomes known as Bloody Sunday. 8 days later, according to the congressional record, President Lyndon B. Johnson addresses a joint session of Congress. He introduces the Voting Rights Act. He ends his speech with the words of the movement's anthem, "We shall overcome." 5 months later, on August 6, 1965, the Voting Rights Act becomes law. It prohibits racial discrimination in voting. According to historians, it is one of the most consequential pieces of legislation in American history. The backlash. But progress has never been linear. It has never been easy, and it has never been permanent. According to historians, the Voting Rights Act sparked a new wave of white resistance. The Ku Klux Klan grew. White citizens' councils formed, and in the decades that followed, the gains of the civil rights movement were systematically eroded. According to the Brennan Center for Justice, between 2010 and 2020, 25 states enacted new voting restrictions, voter ID laws, cuts to early voting, purges of voter rolls. Every one of these measures disproportionately affected voters of color. In 2013, according to the Supreme Court's ruling, the court struck down a key provision of the Voting Rights Act in Shelby County v. Holder, Chief Justice. John Roberts wrote that the formula used to determine which states needed federal oversight was outdated based on data from the 1960s and 1970s. According to media reports, within hours of the decision, Texas announced it would implement a strict voter ID law that had previously been blocked. Other states followed. The protection that had taken Bloody Sunday to achieve was gone. The first black president, November 4, 2008. Grant Park, Chicago, 11 p.m. A 47-year-old man walks onto a stage before 240,000 people. He is about to become the first black president of the United States. According to the Federal Election Commission, Barack Obama's victory was historic. He won 365 electoral votes. He won states that Democrats had not won in decades. He won 53% of the popular vote, the largest margin for a Democrat since 1964. According to the Pew Research Center, voter turnout was the highest in 40 years. Black voters turned out in record numbers. Young voters turned out in record numbers. For millions, Obama's election was proof that America had changed. But Obama understood that change would provoke backlash. He later wrote in his memoir, A Promised Land, "I would be a symbol of the country's racial progress, but also a target for those who resented it." He was right. The backlash intensifies. During the Obama years, according to the Southern Poverty Law Center, hate groups proliferated. The birther movement, led by a real estate developer named Donald Trump, questioned whether Obama was born in America. It was a not-so-subtle way of saying, a black man cannot be president. According to the Brennan Center, voter suppression efforts intensified. Between 2008 and 2016, states across the country passed laws making it harder to vote. The center called it the most significant rollback of voting rights since the end of Reconstruction. And in 2016, according to official election results, Donald Trump was elected president. He had built his political career on the lie that Obama was not American. He had called for a ban on Muslims entering the country. He had referred to Mexican immigrants as rapists. According to political analysts, his victory sent a message that many Americans had been waiting to hear. The backlash had won. The movement that rose from the streets. February 26, 2012, Sanford, Florida, 7:15 p.m. A 17-year-old boy walks home from a convenience store. He wears a hoodie. He carries a bag of Skittles and an iced tea, according to police reports. A neighborhood watch volunteer named George Zimmerman calls 911. He reports a suspicious person. He is told not to get out of his car. He gets out anyway. Zimmerman confronts the boy. A struggle ensues. According to the autopsy report, Zimmerman shoots the boy in the chest. The boy dies on the grass. His name is Trayvon Martin. According to court records, Zimmerman claims self-defense. He is not charged for 44 days. When he is finally tried, a jury acquits him. According to media coverage, the verdict sparks outrage across the country. A young activist named Alicia Garza writes on Facebook, "Black people, I love you. I love us. Our lives matter." According to her later accounts, the phrase spreads. It becomes a hashtag. It becomes a movement. Black Lives Matter is born. The Summer America Burned, May 25, 2020, Minneapolis, Minnesota. 8:08 p.m. A 46-year-old man is accused of using a counterfeit $20 bill at a convenience store. According to police reports, officers arrive. They handcuff him. They pin him to the ground. A bystander films what happens next. The video will be viewed millions of times worldwide. According to the criminal complaint, Officer Derek Chauvin kneels on George Floyd's neck. Floyd says, "I can't breathe." He says it 27 times. He calls for his mother. He goes silent. According to the medical examiner's report, Chauvin keeps his knee on Floyd's neck for 9 minutes and 29 seconds. When the video is released, according to news reports, the world reacts. Protests erupt in all 50 states. They erupt in countries around the world. According to the New York Times, an estimated 15 to 26 million people participate in demonstrations. It is the largest movement in American history. According to court records, Chauvin is convicted of murder in 2021 and sentenced to 22.5 years in prison. But for the protesters in the streets, one conviction is not enough. The system that created Chauvin is still there. The policies that made him possible are still in place. The struggle continues. The monuments fall. In the months after George Floyd's murder, according to media reports, statues of Confederate generals come down across the country. Some are removed by city governments. Some are pulled down by protesters. The debate over how America remembers its past rages as never before. In 2021, the 100th anniversary of the Tulsa Massacre. According to the White House transcript, President Biden visits Greenwood. He is the first sitting president to acknowledge the massacre. He says, I come here to fill the silence. Because in silence, wounds deepen. In 2022, according to the White House, the Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act is signed into law to 120 years after the first such bill was introduced. It makes lynching a federal hate crime for the first time in American history. In 2025, according to news reports, over 230,000 pages of files related to Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination are released. The King family issues a statement warning that they must be viewed within their full historical context, a context of government surveillance, harassment, and attempts to destroy the movement. And in 2026, as this documentary is being made, according to Education News reports, the battle over how to teach Black history continues. Books are banned, curricula are challenged, politicians debate whether children should learn about Tulsa, about Emmett Till, about redlining, about Tuskegee. The numbers that don't lie. Despite all the protests, all the legislation, all the monuments removed and renamed, the numbers haven't changed. According to the Federal Reserve, the median wealth of white families is still 8 times that of Black families. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, Black home ownership rates are still 44%, the same gap as in 1968. According to the Washington Post's database, Black Americans are still 2.5 times more likely to be killed by police. According to the U.S. Department of Education, Black students are still suspended at 3 times the rate of white students. The gap hasn't closed. It has barely moved. For all the progress, for all the blood spilled, for all the marches and speeches and laws, the system remains. The question. The historian, Ibram X. Kendi writes in his book, Stamped from the Beginning, the history of racist ideas is not a history of ignorance and hate. It is a history of powerful ideas used to justify powerful policies. The question is not whether America has made progress. It has. The question is whether that progress is real, or whether it is a veneer over a system that has never truly changed. In Greenwood, the last known survivor of the Tulsa Massacre, Viola Fletcher, testified before Congress at 107 years old. According to the congressional record, she said, "I have lived long enough to see my city acknowledge what happened, but I have not lived long enough to see justice." According to news reports, she died in 2022 at 108 without receiving a cent of reparations. In Mississippi, Emmett Till's name is taught in some schools and banned in others. His mother's fight to make the world see continues. In Memphis, the Lorraine Motel is now a civil rights museum. Visitors stand on the spot where Martin Luther King Jr. was shot and try to imagine what he would think if he could see America today. In Harlem, a street is named after Malcolm X. Schoolchildren learn his name, but few learn the full story of how he was transformed and how he was killed, and how the questions surrounding his death have never been fully answered. The truth is this: America has never fully faced its past. It has never compensated the descendants of enslaved people. It has never truly integrated its schools. It has never closed the wealth gap. It has never fully reckoned with the fact that its prosperity was built on the backs of Black Americans. But the truth is also this: Black Americans have never stopped fighting. From the slaves who revolted on ships crossing the Atlantic, from the freedmen who built Black Wall Street, from the children who marched in Birmingham, from the mothers who demanded justice for Emmett Till, from the activists who filled the streets after George Floyd. They fought. They are fighting. They will keep fighting, because they know what Mystery Doom teaches. The truth cannot stay buried forever. The final word. On June 1, 1921, a 14-year-old boy named W.D. Williams watched his father scream as Greenwood burned. He never forgot what he saw. In 1998, at the age of 91, he testified before the Oklahoma Commission. According to the Commission's transcripts, he described the planes, he described the bombs, he described the bodies. He said, "I want the world to know what happened here. I want them to know that we were a proud people. We had everything, and they took it all." According to his obituary, W.D. Williams died in 2004 at 97. He never saw justice, but he told the truth. And the truth about Greenwood about Emmett Till, about Malcolm and Martin, about Tuskegee, about redlining, about Henrietta Lacks, about Trayvon Martin, about George Floyd. That truth is still here. It is in the archives. It is in the memories of survivors. It is in the DNA of cells that continue to divide. It is in the maps that still determine who gets loans and who doesn't. It is in the statistics that haven't changed in 50 years. And it is in documentaries like this one, made by channels like Mystery Doom, watched by people like you. Because the truth never stays buried forever. It seeps through the soil. It floats to the surface. It demands to be seen. And once you've seen it, you can never unsee it. Subscribe to Mystery Doom. If you have watched this series to the end, you have traveled 400 years. You have seen the wealth of Black Wall Street and the ashes of Tulsa. You have seen the mutilated body of a 14-year-old boy and the movement it sparked. You have seen 2 leaders, 2 paths, 2 assassinations. You have seen a government that experimented on its own citizens, a housing policy that stole generational wealth, and a medical system that profited from stolen cells. You have seen the truth, and now you must decide what to do with it. This is what Mystery Doom is about. Not comforting stories, not easy answers, just the truth, researched, sourced, and presented without fear or favor. The struggle continues, the truth remains, and Mystery Doom will be here, telling it, as long as there are people willing to listen. Subscribe to Mystery Doom, hit the bell icon, turn on notifications. The truth never stays buried forever.